How's it going, guys? You know what it is. Another week, another tutorial. And for this week's How to Tuesday, we have the backward grind, or as some call it, the 180 grind. For the last 3 months, I've been doing a tutorial every Tuesday, and I think we've been progressing pretty nicely. So this week, we're doing something that's a little more advanced, and I hope that you guys have learned the double peg, the 180, and now we're going to put them both together and do the 180 backward grind. So let's get to it. Things you will need. Hopefully this helicopter leaves soon, but for starters, a flat rail or a ledge, either way, whatever you feel more comfortable on. I don't have a flat ledge at home, but I got the Sabrosa flat rail, so I'm going to be doing it on that. And then you'll need 2 pegs, either on the right or on the left. I'm going to be doing it on the left. That means I am left foot forward, and I'm going to be using my 2 left pegs. So yeah. Alright, so first and foremost, this is one of the more advanced tricks I've done for a tutorial on this channel. So I definitely recommend a few things. Number one, if you're younger or more inexperienced in BMX, definitely wear a helmet. I've been doing this trick for like 10 or 12 years now, and even then, one of them got away from me. I'll show it here. And I smacked my butt cheek really good, so be careful. I mean, I know how to get out of it usually, but even then, it's always a good idea to wear a helmet. So if you have one, throw one on. Alright, and number 2, if you're going to do a trick like this, I definitely recommend doing it on something you're very comfortable with, something you can easily 180 over, or 180 onto, whatever, and then do it with comfortable speed. Don't go too slow and don't go too fast. You want to find that perfect middle ground for yourself. Alright, so just to recap, wear a helmet, be safe, be smart. Like I said, I fell on my butt, which is not a big deal to me. But for you guys that are probably younger, I don't want something happening to you guys. BMX is a dangerous sport, so be careful. So the first thing you want to do is get a couple double pegs out of the way. It's always good to warm yourself up on the rail or the ledge or whatever. Just get a few out of the way. Once you've got them pretty comfortably and you feel pretty warmed up, then it's time to try the 180 grind. You're going to want to approach the obstacle perpendicular to it. So that means that you're going to ride as if you're going to crash into it. And then as you're coming into it, you're going to want a 90 on. So it's halfway to the 180, obviously. And the reason that I recommend stalling is that it starts getting your mind on the concept of, spinning to a grind, which is going to be something new. As I said, I'm left foot forward. I grind on the left, so I'm going to be spinning to the right or clockwise. And as I approach the obstacle, I'm going to hop. I'm going to be first off aiming and positioning the back end onto the rail. And you want to do that kind of gently, you don't want to really stab it. And then once you get the back end on, you're going to slowly drop the front end onto it. Once you get those out of the way, then it's really time to move forward and try the 180. This isn't really 100% 180. As you can see, I carve a little bit, but you can carve a lot more initially to just kind of get the idea. Keep in mind that this grind is actually interesting because you're going to be doing it on the opposite side of what you normally grind on. One interesting thing to keep in mind is that when you're going to be grinding something, you normally grind, let's say for myself, on the left, so you're going to be on the right side of the rail. Well, this time you're going to have to come from the opposite side, and the side that's normally on your left will now have to be on your right because you're going to be spinning onto it. So keep that in mind when you're doing it at certain locations because you have to come at it opposite, and sometimes the runway won't be as proper as the way you're traditionally used to. For this time, I'm going to be coming at the rail, and I guess it would be easier to say that I'm going to be spinning from the left onto the right side of the rail and still grinding with my left pegs. So everything is normal for me, but just the obstacle you're going to be doing it on is flipped. So as I was saying earlier, you don't really have to do a full 180. You can get away with doing a 140, a 150, then moving your way up until you pretty much do the whole 180 grind. In fact, you're probably very rarely going to ever come at something and do 180 degrees to grind. You're going to always carve a little bit, so keep that in mind. Like I said earlier, you're going to want to maybe 180 over the rail just to make sure you have the proper height and you feel comfortable with it. And then when you're ready to do it, like I said, maybe come at it at an angle where you're only going to need to do 150 degrees onto the rail. Make sure you aim the back end first and then let the front end get on. Alright, another important caveat. I have the Sabrosa rail at home, so that's what's easiest for me. but I actually learned this on a ledge, and I definitely recommend that you guys learn this on a ledge as well. So don't try and be all manly and learn it on a rail. Stick to the ledge. If you really have to do it on a rail and you really want to, then keep in mind that you have a little more adverse consequences, because you can either, unfortunately sack the rail, you can fall backwards on it, and since you have this much of an area to aim at, you could miss and get into cricket grinds or any other unpredictable things, so be very careful. Alright, but now that you have the concept pretty dialed in your head and you've already gotten onto the grind, the next thing to do is focus on the actual grind by being centered. A lot of people get on the grind, then get so excited that they forget and just topple over, or just keep crashing into the obstacle. So keep in mind that the point of this is to grind backwards, not just stall. So when you're grinding backwards, again, keep yourself nice and centered. So that means don't lean too far forward, don't lean too far to the left or to the right. And then as you're approaching the end of the rail, you want to either kind of like glance over, or from trying it a few times, you already know the amount of time you're going to be grinding, and that'll give you the indicator of when to like hop off. The next step is actually hopping off. There's actually 3 different ways you can do it. Number 1, you can just fakie hop off of it. I think it's the easiest and probably the most safe way, because you don't have to worry about anything. Once you're on, just hop off backwards, make sure you can fakie, and you'll be good. If you're going to try and do the 180 out, then that's a little more difficult, because you have to make sure that you're coming off very close to the end, or actually as soon as you're off the end, that way your back tire doesn't hit the rail. So again, this is going to have to do with timing and just knowing the distance that you're grinding. And as soon as you're coming up to the very end of the rail, you're going to want to first hop the front end off, and you're going to want to be swinging your momentum all the way around to 180, obviously. And to do so, you're going to be leading with your front end and your arms, and then as soon as you feel that the back peg is about to come off, you're going to want to do the hop and then turn your wheel slightly to the right. For myself, I spin to the right, so I'm going to be turning the wheel to the right a little bit, just to guide the front end and the rest of the spin to make sure I come off comfortably. The last thing you can do is Indian give, and what that means is that you 180'd clockwise, you grinded on your left pegs, and then you hopped off 180 the opposite direction. So now you spun counterclockwise. And for those of you guys that are goofy, this might be the way you're going to be coming off normally. Some people, for whatever reason, just learn how to come off Indian or opposite of the way that they got on, and that's fine. But to be honest, that's more of an advanced trick, and actually I might have to do a whole tutorial on that one at some point. So for now, we're just going to come off the backward grind either fakie or 180 away from the grind. Alright, so I'm telling you guys, be very careful. My butt cheek still hurts. As I'm sitting down, I'm kind of realizing this, so be careful. Although the 180 grind is pretty straightforward, the concept is very practical and makes sense, it's pretty dangerous. And at this point, I might be beating a dead horse, but just be careful when you're getting onto it. Make sure that you're concentrating fully, there's no distractions, and you're really making sure that both pegs get on. As far as the troubleshooting goes, a lot of people struggle with the actual 180. So like I said, it really does help to 180 over the obstacle, just to make sure that you have the height and capability of doing so. Then once you know you're comfortably 180 over it, another problem that people have is that they either under-rotate or over-rotate. So if you're under-rotating, that could be one of 2 things. Either the angle that you're approaching the rail is off, or you're hopping from too far. So either approach the rail a little tighter, or if you're under-rotating because you're coming at the wrong angle, either approach the rail almost completely parallel to it, or just slightly under, or like I said, you're going to want to spin from a little closer distance. Again, be very careful if you're going to try to approach the rail a little closer, because sometimes as you're doing the 180 into the grind, you might hit your front end. So that means you're obviously too close when you spin. Over-rotating is when you actually spin so much more than a 180 that you're actually like bumping yourself off of the grind, or you're just like hitting it and losing control and kind of like falling over the ledge. So again, make sure that you spin just enough. 180 degrees, you aim the back end, then the front end, and as soon as you land, just stay nice and centered and you'll come off the grind very easily. Alright, so once you've worked out all the kinks to your 180 grind, you should be on there pretty smooth, locked and loaded, and grinding backwards like nothing. Once you have it dialed, you can do a lot of different things. People 180 bar spin into the grind, 180 bar spin out. You can do 180 cricket grinds and 180 ice pick grinds. You might even be the person to do the first 180 backwards toothpick grind down something very long. I mean, there's even people like Rob Wise who used to backer grind up rails, so the trick is pretty limitless. But it's dangerous, so be careful. And I think that's going to do it for me today. As always, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments. I try and check as many as possible, and I try and get back to you guys, but it's becoming a little more difficult over time. But I still read them, so I'm out there. And as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And check out my other videos that I've done. Check out my other tutorials. And don't forget to stay tuned for tomorrow's vlog. As always, much love. Peace, y'all.